Here we are live. It's my Friday. I'm so excited. Today is Tuesday, November 3rd, and gosh, my name is Stanfield, and I'm excited about being here. I'm a modern longevitarian. We've already got people coming online. I'm super excited about this. Today's guest is Shawn Bucher. He's a certified executive chef, MBA, author, leader, and we have had multiple conversations that you can hear online that are. I've been on his podcast multiple times, and he's been on my podcast. Episode 1 of my Restaurant General Manager podcast that I was just listening to this morning and taking notes. And Shawn is just like dropped gold nugget after gold nugget after gold nugget on this. And so what I really want to do is you can go to my website, modernlongevitarian.com. If you are a restaurant manager or whatever you do, right, or chef, or I don't know, you work in marketing, the most important thing you do for your health is sleep. So what you can do is actually go to modernlongevitarian.com/sleep, and you can download this book for free to help you get the sleep of your dreams. Now, the book's titled Outstanding Landing, and I just want to encourage you to take care of your health. No matter how stressful you are, sleep is more important than diet and exercise combined. And so your stress level can really go down if your emotional intelligence can go up. Your stress level will go down just based off the sleep that you get at the right time. That's for you. We're all individuals. And I just wanted to really market or tell you about that. Without any further ado, we're going to switch over. We're going to bring Shawn on here and get him going. And we're going to ask him a bunch of questions about what it is to start a restaurant during a pandemic. And so let me give you 1 second here. And Shawn, welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here.
Oh, yeah. Well, here we are. And I mean, I wrote this thing here. I was like, Shawn is a guest on episode 1 of my podcast, The Restaurant General Manager. This is Shawn's first time on what I hope is many appearances on It's My Friday. Shawn is a chef, a leader, an author, and now an owner of a New Mexican-style burrito restaurant in Albuquerque. Shawn is my friend, and welcome to It's My Friday. So, welcome.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks. That's a very kind introduction.
You're welcome. Yeah, I was listening to it. We're live. Right. So, an interesting thing is, we've had, I think I've been on your podcast 4 times. Right. And you stopped doing the podcast when all this kind of broke loose and you had to make a pivot in this thing. And you've been on my podcast. So and I don't want to get into rehashing like your origin story or any of those things, because people can go back to episode 1 of the Restaurant General Manager podcast, which, by the way, is one of the most popular episodes that I have, and it continues to get listens every single week. Yes. And I love so many things of that. So I did tease out a couple things that I wanted to cover again as like a review session, right? But for those things. But what made you go from, I mean, you're working as a consultant, you podcast, author, and now you've got a restaurant in one of the most challenging times of our lives, for sure.
What a dummy, right? I mean, who does that? Here's a guy who's got it all, and then he gives it all up to go, work 60 hours a week. And oh man, Scott, what was I doing? No, it's been interesting because I've had a very diverse career. I've been able to do a lot of things, and I'm very grateful for a lot of the opportunities I've been given. But I myself am not immune to the effects of the pandemic. I had jumped out of traveling so much. I was traveling a lot and wanted to be home more. And so I actually jumped into a job that I was there for a few months, and then I was laid off also, much like a lot of people out there. And I'll tell you what, for me, if I send out, 5-6 resumes to, half a dozen places, I'll at least get 1 callback, maybe 2. And I probably sent out 50 resumes and got nothing. I mean, nothing. And I mean, well, I wasn't even getting form emails. I was getting nothing. And it got a little bit scary for a little bit. So this was back in June. I had this idea, oh man, for a while. My wife and I, she grew up in Albuquerque, and we've wanted to do something for a long, long time. Um, and so when we were talking about what we wanted to do kind of long term as much as I love consulting, as much as I love writing books and teaching and doing all the things that I've done, in my core, I'm an operations guy. I'm a restaurant guy. And that's really what I wanted to come back to. But I didn't necessarily want to go back to nights, weekends, holidays. I didn't want to go back to just doing everything I could to squeeze every last penny out of, every dollar that came in. I really wanted to do it differently. I wanted to build a concept in Albuquerque, where we live, that was a little bit different, that was different than what's out there right now. New Mexican cuisine is very, very traditional, and people like what they like. So, when people come down here, they're pretty much guaranteed that they're going to eat green chili and red chili and empanadas and enchiladas and burritos. And, that's just what everyone serves, because that's what everyone likes to eat down here. And that's what it's known for. I wanted to be a little bit different. I wanted to do those things. I wanted to do traditional items, but I wanted to do them in a non-traditional way. And so we've created some products and things that we feel are unique to the market that, we can bring to the table that will kind of change things, hopefully kind of bring it up a notch quality wise and convenience wise. Everything nowadays has become so much more about convenience. And the challenge with that, with convenience, is that you can't always offer the highest quality product. And we're trying to kind of kick that trend. We're trying to really serve a high quality product fast in kind of the setting that we're in now. And so we had planned on, I was going to work and we were going to get this up and going, and things were going to be great, and it was going to work out well because we were going to have income to fall back on. And, and then when I got laid off and I couldn't find anything else, it was like, well, I guess we got to fast track this project because we got to have income eventually. And so we've taken all of our savings, we've taken our retirement, we've taken everything that we have and put into this. And essentially we're all in. And if it fails, then I'm going to end up living with my parents again or something. I don't know, but we're hopeful it won't fail. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been a challenge. And we're getting to a point where we will eventually, sorry, I'm sitting in my restaurant and I'm trying to do this interview and people are knocking on the door to come in. It's crazy. It's great, but yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, we're excited. We're scared to death, and we're opening a restaurant in probably one of the worst possible times to open a restaurant.
Right. Well, if you need to go make a burrito or two, let me know. I can fill in the gap until you get back. Right.
Well, we're not even open yet. Like we've got a really decent location. And I kid you not, I'm here every day. That's why I'm dressed like this. This is construction Shawn look.
Right.
I've had to do most of the construction myself because we just haven't been able to get people to show up. We've tried to hire people to help us, and it just hasn't really come together the way we had hoped. But we've had to pivot, we've had to adjust, and so we've adjusted, we've pivoted, we've gotten to a point now where we're getting ready to open November 16th, hopefully, knock on wood.
Oh, wow.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, it's really, really awesome, that, and I say this because, it's, this is a time for pivoting. Obviously, I've worked, you and I, basically the same amount of time in the restaurant, food and beverage industry. And now here I am. I'm not the restaurant GM coach. I'm not a restaurant general manager. I'm not a director of food and beverage. I'm not any of those things. I'm a modern longevitarian. So you're sitting in your pivot. I'm sitting in my pivot, and we both went opposite directions of what we really were doing before, right? You
Yep.
were coaching, teaching, training, and now you're doing, right? And here I am, I was living on the sideline, this life as a modern longevitarian, and teaching it to my team, right? If they're asking me health things or stuff like that, and posting a couple things on LinkedIn, here and there about it, but nothing major. And then now that's what I do like almost all of my time. And so, gosh, I admire you so much for taking the chance of doing this and going all in. You put all the chips on the table. You're like, hey, I'm all in, and
Yeah.
here I go.
We didn't know how to do it any other way. I mean, it's interesting because, obviously starting a business, especially a business like this, takes a lot of capital up front. And our plan was we were going to get an SBA loan because SBA loans were supposedly easier to get now. And so we had applied for loans and everything was looking good. I had a 6-figure salary that I was pulling in, and we had money in the bank. And so everybody wanted to lend money to us at that point. And it was so funny because the second I was laid off, no one would talk to us. No one. And so we had to find alternative routes. I mean, we've had to get credit cards. Like I said, we've had to take out high interest loans. I mean, we've had to go a different route than what we anticipated going because the world changed overnight. We went from, we were going to do this slow and steady to, wow, we got to get open so that we have an income again. And so that's been a little bit scary. It's been a little bit difficult. And, that's a very different mindset going into it when you've got this mindset of, I've got to make this work and it's got to work like now. That's a different mindset than, we'll get open when we get open. And
right. Right. Yeah. Well, I think that there's, I've asked you, I mean, you've already hit on this a little bit about, you're like, supercharged on getting this going, but what is the difference between, besides that nobody's talking to you, you're laid off and all those type of things, but what's the difference about, starting during a pandemic than it would be if you were just starting normally, right? I mean, you've opened restaurants before. I mean, what do you think is different?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I've probably opened 100 food outlets over my career, between hospitals and restaurants and different concepts I've worked with. I've probably opened 100 locations. But the thing that's different now, the biggest thing is that it's my money. The other big things are the rules change daily. I mean, we don't know if we're going to be able to offer dine-in seating. We don't know if we're going to be able to offer outdoor seating. We don't know if we're going to have to do solely to go. I mean, it changes daily. And I think that's the biggest thing that's different is we're having to adjust and pivot so rapidly that it makes it hard to really put together a plan and stick to it. And that's usually been my MO in the past is I've been able to be very proactive as far as getting things done, very, very quickly. I've been able to spend 2 and 3 and 4 months getting ready to pull the trigger on something. And then when I'm finally able to pull the trigger, I've got all my ducks in a row and I've got everything, rocking and rolling. Whereas with this, this was the 4th location that we looked at seriously. We probably looked at, 25 different locations, but this was the 4th one that we looked at that we actually were able to kind of get under contract and sign a lease. Our other locations, one of them kind of pulled the rug out from underneath us right at the end and said, we're going to stick with the current tenant. Another one, when we went to sign the lease, it was very different than what we had negotiated in the letters of intent. And so there was just, there was a lot of like, oh man, we got to get this up and going. But a lot of that depends on, what is our location going to be? And until we have a location, it's hard to make those plans. So once we got into this spot, number one, we have phenomenal landlords that have been very, very, very amicable to adjusting and helping us kind of get in and get up and going. But the other thing is that in the process of kind of putting things together, we've realized that there's a lot of stuff that we hadn't anticipated or we hadn't planned on. And, we wanted a drive-through from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
This location didn't have it, but this location rent was half of what the other properties we were looking at. And it's in a good place. And so we thought, well, that's okay, because we'll focus on curbside, we'll focus on catering, some of these aspects of the business that we planned on doing. But with the drive-through, it was kind of low-hanging fruit. We were going to be able to just get people in and out and rock and roll and have the sales that we needed to support the business while we got this other stuff up and going. But then with this, it was like, well, okay, we'll start on the harder stuff first, and then we'll look at drive-throughs in our next couple locations. Our goal is to do 25 of these in the next 5 years, and I think we can do it. But with that said, we just figured that we'll get in, we'll make some money, we'll prove the concept, and then the next ones will get exactly what we want. Well, a week ago, we figured out how to put a drive-through in, and so now we're putting a drive-through in. So that's when another oh man, we didn't anticipate this. How do we do this? And,
right. Well, I saw an article yesterday on LinkedIn about Starbucks because they profited more this last quarter than what. And I don't know if you saw the same article or not, but I'll summarize it here. They were expected to profit like $6 billion, and their profit was $6.2 billion, so higher during the pandemic. And the reason that they're attesting this higher profit is that 25% of their orders are pre-orders through their app. Okay. And people are picking up at the store. And I've also seen other locations, not just Starbucks, but other things with drive-throughs that have done successful because people don't have to get out of their cars for that. Now, interesting thing about Starbucks is their payment module, their payment method is bigger than Apple Pay. That's how many people are buying things from Starbucks through that. So I don't know if you can get anything out of that saying pre-orders or, those type of things, drive through, that type of stuff. But I'm just giving what I can for you to plant that seed to maybe help you going down the road. Now, Starbucks started doing that 5 years ago. So that was something that it was really interesting how the author of that article was saying that something that they thought about and implemented they thought about probably 6 or 7 years ago, they implemented 5 years ago, is really reaped its benefits now during this time when we're social distancing, wearing masks, not getting out of our cars. And they even had store closures in a lot of places too. So there's a lot of things that really go into that. And, I've seen the same thing. Like I went for a hike with a former restaurant manager here, in Park City, Utah, and said they're making more money now because they're running leaner. Right. That's one of the things I'm seeing a lot of people. And I'm also seeing that in terms of tips, that people are tipping more than that, where people are making, 2, 3, 4 times more than what they'd make if we would have stayed open. Now there's less people. Not everybody's working, but the people who are working doing the curbside are making more money. So are you seeing that trend too? And some of your friends, are they telling you those things or?
Yeah. Well, and you talked about Starbucks and their pivoting and their ability to kind of increase their sales. One of the articles that that has really impressed me has been, Chipotle and Shake Shack and some of these iconic brands that are kind of on the cutting edge. They're adding drive-throughs to their locations now. They're hiring. One of the articles was that Chipotle was hiring 10,000 people to man these drive-throughs that they're going to put in. And so, for me, obviously as a restaurateur, you want to be ahead of the curve. You want to do what's going to make you successful 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 years down the road, not just the next 6 months. Because there's always that excitement factor when a restaurant opens, when a new place is open. You've got that curve of man, these guys are awesome. It's new. Everybody's trying it, into that kind of lull where, everybody's tried it and they're on to whatever the next thing is. Obviously our hope is to stay consistent in our sales and our sales growth, but we want to set ourselves up for success, and that's why we've tried to hit on every aspect of the business. We're creating a dine-in space that is comfortable and is something that we can kind of hang our hat on, so to speak.
Right.
We are looking at our patio space. I've had to build tables for that because that was kind of an unused space in the previous concept. Because that's going to be something that I think people are going to want to take advantage of. Obviously, adding the drive-through is a big part of that. We're looking at different options for catering vans and things. We've put together a very simple, basic, fast catering menu that again, we're hopeful we can really execute at a high level. So we've tried to kind of hit on every aspect of the business. And as we go along down the road, I think our focus will go to wherever we're seeing results. So when we see results in one area, we'll put more assets in that area. And if we see less in another area, we may step back a little bit from it. But I think that's what a lot of these iconic companies have really done, is they have changed the way that they do things based on what they're seeing out there. And I think that's kind of a lesson for all of us, is that when you see the benefits of the results, then you continue to follow that route. And if you're doing something and it's just not working, stop doing it or do it differently. Figure something else out, because you don't want to just keep doing the same thing with the same results. So even when we've been interviewing people, we've had to just say, look, guys, get ready to bump your head a few times, because we're going to have to figure this out. We think this is going to happen. It might be, our hope is the result is X, but it might end up being Y. And when it is, we're going to have to change. And I think most of the people that have come in and interviewed and been a part of things I think they get it. I think they see, okay, this has potential. We like this. We want to be a part of it, so much so that we're going to quit our other jobs or, whatever, and come work for you. But we also know that it's one thing to come into a job and know that things are going to change and that it's going to be a little bit rough and tumble for a while. It's another thing to come in and think that it's going to be smooth sailing. I think those are two different people. So anyway, that's been an interesting thing to kind of experience, is interviewing and getting people to see that this is not going to be, you're not going to come in and just clock in and do your thing. You're going to have to get scrappy with us. And that's kind of with every business, but we're excited. We feel like things are going to rock and roll.
That's amazing. I love your spirit about that, because you're basically, saying we don't know which way we're going to go. We got all these options, right? And we got data that's coming in these articles. We're seeing those different things, and so we're gonna try everything and see what works, right? And really go down that road. So, gosh, I don't know that I can say that I've actually experienced a true New Mexico style burrito. So, for those who haven't, right, and all the foodies out there in the world, tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll talk about what you're going to do just a little bit different to put the Shawn Bucher spin on it. So
I love it. Well, traditional New Mexican cuisine is very different than Mexican cuisine. They're very similar in the sense that you have similar items, the burritos and enchiladas, and a lot of tortillas, a lot of chips and salsa, but it's different in the sense it's a little more earthy, more rustic, more down and dirty kind of thing, where obviously Mexican cuisine can differ depending on the region that you're in, but overall, you think about chain Mexican food, you've got your staples, your pico de gallo and guacamole, and all the food items. With this, we're a little bit different in the sense that the staple ingredients that we build around are going to be red and green chili, which is what New Mexican cuisine is mostly known for, is that roasted green chili or that sun-dried red chili. That's a very hearty, very, very earthy flavor, not quite as light as you would get in traditional Mexican fare. So because it's a little bit heavier and darker, so to speak, we have to find other ways to balance out some of those flavors. So down here, one of our signature products is going to be breakfast burritos, because anybody who's been through New Mexico, everybody has a breakfast burrito on their menu. I mean, the Hawaiian place across the street has breakfast burritos on their menu.
Was it got a ham and pineapple in it? What is it? What's it got in it?
No, it's very traditional. And traditional breakfast burritos down here are, a potato product, generally hash browns with an egg, possibly cheese, but then bacon or sausage, red or green chili. And sometimes that green chili is chopped. Sometimes it's in more of a gravy. The red chili is generally, a very spicy, earthy, kind of enchilada type sauce for anyone who's not really familiar with it. And what I noticed was that most of them are the same. I mean, when you come down and you experience it, no matter where you go, there's some definite staples of places that people prefer to go, but most of it is the same. Because they sell so much of it, a lot of times your hash browns are underdone. And so it's a little soggy. Maybe the eggs are generally, cooked hard, where they're a little overcooked. The bacon and sausage is not always, it's like bacon bits and sausage crumbles. And I wanted to kind of do what Chipotle had done with Mexican food, where you use really high quality ingredients. You provided this no frills kind of thing, where everything was basically just a burrito and foil, but the food really spoke for itself and was very high quality and very flavorful. So we're making everything from scratch. Another staple of New Mexican food is carne adobada, which is red chili pork. So it's kind of like a carnitas with red chili in it. And it's phenomenal, but a lot of it is the same down here. And so I wanted to do everything from scratch. So we're making our own, carne adobada, where our burritos are going to be a little different because I want to have texture in them. So we're doing really crispy potatoes. We're doing a queso instead of just like shredded cheese. So it's going to make it a little bit more moist. We're using really high quality, big, thick strips of bacon. Our carne adobada, again, is homemade. We make it want to make it every day. We'll actually braise it overnight in a mixture of herbs and spices, and use our red chili. I mean, it's going to be good. We've tested the product quite a few times on quite a few people, and always gotten phenomenal feedback. And I think that was a big thing for me was, I want to eat a breakfast burrito that has all those different things, has a lot of flavor, has a lot of texture, has these different components. But because everyone is so traditional down here, we couldn't necessarily just say, okay, now a breakfast burrito is with beans and rice and eggs. Like, we couldn't do that. We had to stay on the traditional route enough to where, people were familiar with the components that were in it, but we are presenting them differently in a way that really makes it unique and will really, I think, help us stand out in the market. On the other side of things, we're approaching this concept very differently. We're approaching this from an employee standpoint and not a guest standpoint. And that might sound weird to some people out there, but we are paying people a little bit more. We are hiring less people. We are not only just kind of providing the benefits for them right from the get-go, but we're also looking at only being open 6 to 2 Monday through Friday, which is a trip. I mean, most people, if you can work breakfast and lunch Monday through Friday, like that's pretty amazing. We're also not going to be open on holidays. So there's this thing that is going to be very different from the standpoint of what is traditionally done. And I think that's going to help us retain people a little bit better, because not only are they able to make, living wages, but they're also able to have some of that balance in life where, they're going to be able to spend time with their family in the afternoons and evenings and holidays. And I think by approaching it, and again, I have to say, I think, because we're figuring this out,
Right.
I'm trying to look at this from the perspective of when I was a cook and things, what did I want? What did I need? And so these were all things that I wanted. These are things I want now. But, there was never really anywhere to do that because it was always, well, you got to cut your teeth. You got to work the nights, weekends, holidays. You got to work 100 hours a week. You got to be uncomfortable. And we're saying, well, let's try it a different way. Let's try it a more sustainable way. And have a high quality product people can be proud of, but not necessarily, let's try not to kill ourselves doing it. Let's have some balance in our own life so that we can then, take care of our guests a little bit better. Because somebody who's, and you can appreciate this as a modern longevitarian, if you take care of yourself, you're then able to take care of others in a much better way.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I admire what you're doing so much. I mean, I think of Chick-fil-A closed on Sundays, even as popular as they've ever been, right? That they are, that they've done that. And it's been, listening to because I saw on the website that you're open 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? And I didn't know the Monday through Friday piece, which is, right. How could you not be open on Saturday and Sunday, right? Or, how could you even think about that as a restaurateur? And I love the book, and I actually did a show on this yesterday called, Restaurant Leaders Should Eat Family Meal Last, which was a play on the book by Simon Sinek, which is Leaders Eat Last, right? And I think we've talked about that before. And basically it's about putting people first, right? Putting your people first over the numbers. And that's exactly what you're doing, but you're doing it in this way that most people haven't even thought about before. And so it's been a really cool way of learning that. And so what are you looking at in terms of like marketing your restaurant prior to opening?
Well, and that's a good question, because I mean, the knee-jerk reaction that everyone thinks is, well, we got to hit the ground running. We got to get 100 people in here from day one. I like to take a little bit of a back seat to that. I want my team to be comfortable in the sense that I want them to have time to learn what they're doing. I want them to be purposeful in how they do it. And so I don't want to overwhelm them from the beginning. Now, is that to say that when we open subsequent locations and the word is out, chances are we're going to be busier at those openings. But for this very first one, no one knows who we are. No one really knows what we have to offer. And so because of that, we're going to take advantage of that. And we're going to essentially turn the sign on, and whoever comes in is going to be our guinea pigs. And we're going to very grassroots kind of grow this thing. Now, because of that, speaking of leaders eating last, my wife and I have decided that we're not going to take a salary through the end of the year. So that's going to give us an additional 6 weeks to really, play out some of these hypotheses essentially, and see what works. Now, I think that based on the caliber of people that we're bringing in here, within the first week, we are going to be ready for more. And I think at that point, that's when we're going to throw up banners, now open. We're going to start doing some cross-promotional marketing. We've got some phenomenal partners in some of our vendors that we're going to be doing things with. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that we can do, that we have on the horizon, but we want to make sure that the team is ready for it. It'd be great to be doing $10,000 days from the start, but that we also don't want to burn people out, and we don't want to have people feel super overwhelmed initially. We want to give them a chance to really ease into it. We want to give ourselves a chance, and this concept a chance to really kind of flush out some of the nitty gritty that doesn't come until people are in the building. And so, we're hoping to set ourselves up for success in this sense that, if we can approach this a little bit differently and not try to go gangbusters initially, but then kind of ease into it once we get our feet on the ground. At that point, that's when we'll start to do, all the marketing, the signs and banners, the cross promotional stuff, the social media, all that stuff will go into effect full bore once our team is ready and once we feel like we can really execute consistently.
Okay, sounds great. Now I have, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Shawn. I brought in a mystery guest that is a surprise to you to ask you a question here. So we just remember we are live here.
Oh, you
would. Well, it's just kind of an odd thing here, right? So let's switch to. Let me figure out how to do this exactly. It's one of my first times doing this, right? So let's add this in, and all right. So mystery guest, you get to ask your question to Chef Shawn Bucher.
Hi, Chef Shawn Bucher. Have you ever heard of Google?
Yeah, once or twice.
So I was Googling you, and I can't Google you.
You can't Google me?
Yeah, how do I do the Google on ABQ burrito?
Oh.
What's up, Shawn?
You guys got a couple of little rascals here.
You didn't know where to go with that one, did you?
I didn't know where to go because I have Googled myself, and there's plenty there. Lots of stuff I even don't want to be there.
That's funny.
For those of you who don't know who the mystery guest is, he's the author of this book called Outrank, Damon Burton, who also has a podcast called Learning from Others and is an SEO specialist and super funny guy if you want to follow somebody on social media that has some jokes for sure, right? So
that's why I said, do you know what Google is? Because anybody that knows who I am, that's a stupid question. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited you got things going. I'm excited that you coincidentally texted. Just kidding. I'm excited that you got things going and you snagged that other domain that we're talking about and that you're making some progress.
Yeah, I'm trying. We, Damon and I have done a few things together. We've grown up together. Damon and I used to skateboard together. So, I mean, way back in the day. And he's turned out to be infinitely more successful than I have, which is great. And I'm happy for him. But the thing about the ABQ stuff was the first thing that when we were talking about domain names, he's like, yeah, I want to help you with your website. What's your domain? And I told him that it had a hyphen in it. And I could just feel his face like, oh no. And so I've spent the last couple of weeks trying to snag that ABQ burrito, and last night I finally got it. So anyway, we're going to be working on that.
I'll have you give me the story later on if you had to manually hit refresh or if you went and did one of those things to try and pick it up for you. I don't want to bore the audience. Well, I just wanted to come in and derail you a little bit. I'm going to bounce out. Just wanted to say hi. Good to see you're making progress. Since I know you both, we thought it'd be funny. So.
Well, thanks for, you definitely threw me a curveball since you've been giving me some flack about not getting this up and going sooner, which I should have, but I'm construction Shawn right now. So
yeah. Are you there right now? Is that what I'm seeing in the background?
Yeah. This is in the background.
Super cool.
See it. Yeah. I still have equipment that has to be picked up and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you. All right. I'll let you guys do your thing. Thanks, listeners, for letting me train wreck this.
Well, Damon gave me advice too, because modern longevitarian is so hard to spell. So I now have strongforlonger.com. So that forwards to the modern longevitarian site. So you're all over domain advice, right?
I'm a domainer. Yeah. I got, I was probably more into domains before I got into SEO, and obviously they overlap, but I'm all about domains. I think I'm sitting on 400 something of them. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm at 20, I think is where I'm at. I love collecting these things. I've had probably 50 in my whole life, right? Since this has been a thing, right? But I love collecting domains. It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, my first domain I bought was in 2000 or 2001, and I still have them. So yeah, I've
Wow.
had a few for a long time.
Yeah, I've had Modern Longevitarian for almost 9 years, and I never did anything with it till June or July this year.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'll sit on
yeah.
some too, just because there's some good potential. That I mean, they're so cheap. You can just buy them for $10 or $20, and if you can't get to it for a while, it's not that big of a deal.
Right. I just bought one the other day. I bought hombrehacks.com. So.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to be, right?
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Oh, thanks for coming on, David. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys.
All right, take care. Bye.
You and your mystery guests.
That's the first time I've done that. I saw him comment on the post last night. I was like, "Hey, do you want to come on and like ask Shawn a question?" And then it like kind of blew up into that mystery guest thing, right? So that's what I was doing. I was texting because he popped up behind in the background and it didn't have a video feed. And I was like, "Hey, I'll bring you on when you have video." And he told me he wanted to do it once he got there. I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's where where it came from.
Oh, damn
it! Yeah, he's a character. We chat, a lot, and he's definitely a character for sure.
He's a rock star. He does some incredible work and has really made some great strides. I'm really proud of everything that he's done. A little jealous, but he deserves everything. He's really worked hard to get where he's at.
Yeah, he has. And, when you hear his, we talked about sleep, and those things, the hours he's gotten up and to get ahead of the day and those type of things. And those type of things, it's been amazing to hear his story and how he's been successful and those type of things. And how hard he's worked and did two things at one time, which is what you were planning on doing to get those things to bridge over to that. But, a lot of us like me, like I was furloughed on March 22nd. I haven't worked in a restaurant in 7 months, which is the longest I've gone since, in my 20s, right? Working in restaurants and I'm 48 now. It's been a long time since I've not worked in a restaurant this long. And, I'm super excited about, bringing Modern Longevitarian to the world, and doing that. So you were talking about food, and which actually I moved into marketing, right? Because I knew Damon was going to be coming on, and I wanted to talk about those things. But so what's one of the things that you're going to do to put your spin on this? Besides, the making it fresh daily and those type of things. I mean, is you're going to season like your the pork differently? Is it roast overnight or braises overnight? Or is there any type of, I feel like I'm having this like a virtual diners, drive-ins and dives experience where I'm looking forward to coming down there like, hey, let's go live and let's taste some burritos, right? Let's do this, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, everything that we do is going to be different than what it traditionally is. We're going to try to do things as high quality as possible as far as making things from scratch. We've got signature, herbs and spice blends that we're going to be doing on stuff. I'm using one piece of equipment to cook everything. And that's a Rationale combi oven. And we are literally going to do bacon and sausage and eggs and carne adobada and tater tots. And I mean, everything is going to be done in this one oven, which, for franchising purposes is great because it's going to allow for more consistency. It's going to allow us to lower that initial equipment costs for anybody who gets into this. I mean, all in with this concept, if you were to look at a Wendy's or, another typical fast food chain, we're closer to what like your startup costs are for a Subway than we are for anything else, which is very different. Subway startup costs are sometimes half of what the others are. And when you're looking at ROI and you're looking at how soon am I going to be able to get my investment back, those are really important things to look at. But I've worked with this company for a number of years, very, very familiar with their products, love them, have used them in all types of different settings. And so we're kind of going all in on that too, where we're putting all our eggs in one basket by kind of putting everything into this one piece of equipment, which if it fails, we're not serving any food. But we feel very confident that it's going to sustain us for the long run. And we're excited because it allows me to do more with less. So we're not having to spend as much money up front. Our ongoing operating costs are going to be much lower. You know, our employees are not going to have to clean a fryer. We're not going to have to, clean ovens. At the end of the day, we drop a couple of tablets in this oven and we shut the door and it washes itself. There's a lot of intrinsic benefits in what we're doing that, again, are very different from what you would see traditionally. But everything that we're doing, again, is very, very employee centered. It's also meant to be a little bit more sustainable, but also meant to be attractive to possible investors who want to franchise this, because we believe that, you know, if I can create this concept that's good and it's fast and it lives up to the tagline, which is fast, fresh, New Mexican, we really believe that we can do gangbusters with this thing. We can, grow it throughout the state and regionally, and kind of see from there what happens. But to do that and to really look at that 25 locations in 5 years goal, we have to think outside the box.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing, from everything from hiring to how we're presenting food, to equipment that we're using. I mean, everything is outside the box. There are no sacred cows in what we're doing.
Well, if you need help along the way, you know where I'm at, right? You got my phone number. You can shoot me a text. And
come on down.
One of the things, let's talk about rationales, because I'm a huge fan of those. I actually went to multiple the demonstrations here in Utah and seeing that, and was considering buying it for one of the hotels where I was a director of food and beverage from. One of the stumbling blocks I've seen with that, which you don't have, but you may see as you're expanding into franchising, is that old school chefs and cooks don't want to learn a new way to cook, right? And so
definitely experienced that.
Did you represented the company, right? Rationale, you were the chef for them at one point. Is that?
I was an RCL. I was a Rationale certified chef, an RCC, and technically still am. But I traveled around and supported the ovens. I supported the product and learned a lot just from doing that. Because 1 week I'd be in a hospital, next week I was in a school, next week I was in an independent restaurant, helping them with menu development. So I got to see all sorts of different things. What Rationale would always say, though, because that was the argument a lot of times, was, well, then you don't need a chef. Why would you do that? You're getting yourself out of a job. But the reality is that the chef is the one who puts the settings in there, who sets things up, and then it's consistent every time. Whereas if you train somebody how to do something, they might say, oh yeah, I totally understand, and it goes in one ear and out the other. Or, everything is great until Friday night at 7:30 when you're buried in tickets and then you start taking shortcuts. That's where I think, we're kind of basing our success on this product, is really being able to use that consistency factor in putting the settings in there, so that when somebody goes to cook bacon, it's not up to opinion, it's up to whatever the setting that's in there. They're going to push a button that says bacon,
right?
So there's a lot of times things are left up to interpretation, where cook A thinks that it needs to be done more, cook B thinks it needs to be done less. With this, it's objective. It's you push a button and it's done. It's the same every time. And that's what we're really hoping for, because we really want to deliver on that fast, fresh promise. And the only way that we can do that is to be successful. And the only way that people are going to come back is that they know, if I have to be at work at 7 a.m., I have to know that I can pull up into that drive-through line at 6:45 and be out at 6:50.
Right.
And so that's that's our hope. Is this is going to be very simple. We're starting out incredibly simply, but it's a lot easier to start here and then grow to here, instead of having to start here and then backtrack. If you can't be successful, you can always add. It's a lot easier to add than it is to subtract. And so that's our hope, is to really start with something great and kind of go from there.
Mm. Yeah, I think about you're from Utah. I've lived in Utah for a long time. Damon's from Utah. We're all here. I think of Cafe Rio, right? I think of how they, like, you can get a burrito, but it's enchilada style and those type of things. And they've been super popular and grown a lot regionally. And then just recently, on the same thing, I don't know if you saw this, but there's a Utah investment company, and I don't remember the name of it, but they invested in cracked chicken.
Yeah, the
right?
Savory Fund.
Yeah, the Savory Fund, right? And so, is that something you're looking at doing in the future, or you want to do this all bootstrap on your own?
We'll kind of see. I mean, I'm not opposed to taking investment, but I'm pretty familiar with what comes when you take that investment. As that, yes, you're able to grow faster. You're also giving up a lot, if not most, of the pie, and so we'll kind of see. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Yes, our goal is to grow this, but I think we need a good 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, maybe even, to get things really dialed in. Get our numbers where we want them, get our procedures where we want them, get just kind of a consistent product and offering, and we want to really focus on that initially, and then kind of see what happens from there. I mean, things can change overnight, and if a big investment group comes in and helps us grow, then if the timing is right and we feel like that's the best way to go, then we'll go that way. But if not, if we're having a good time and maybe we want to change that goal from 25 to 5, and we want to just keep it in the family, and maybe we want to start another concept, we're open to that too. We're just kind of taking this day by day at this point, and as things change, we'll adapt and kind of see what happens.
Right. So what's the climate like now in New Mexico when it comes to COVID? I mean, are restaurants allowed 50%, 75%, 25% in dining? What's going on?
Currently 25%, and then when you come in, you're also required to give your name and contact information.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's why we're kind of, the concept is really built around to-go catering, convenience, and so that's why we're really hoping to focus on that. We will have in dining, but we won't. I don't know that we'll really focus on that. The concept is not necessarily built for that. It's built more for kind of our current culture of convenience and fast.
Right. Well, I'm super excited. I know you got a lot of fans out there that are rooting for you. I know that I am, and I can't wait down to come and try some. I might have to go gluten-free and go down that road, right? So
it's okay. We got plenty of options for you.
Is there
everybody down here, it's the vegetarian movement hasn't hit New Mexico quite, I think, as much as other places, and or the flexitarian and all the different terms that you hear nowadays. But we want to stay ahead of that, and so we are offering salads. We have kind of signature salads that we're doing. We're making our dressings from scratch. The burritos and things that we're offering. We do have vegetarian options. We have vegan options. We have kind of lighter, fresher options than just the traditional kind of heavy, earthy flavors. And so we'll see how that goes.
Right.
I think that there is a market for it, but it's probably just untapped, and people don't focus on it because it's just untapped and not focused on.
Right. Well, you should look into getting some produce from Farmer Lee Jones. I know you commented last week when I had him on the show.
Right? He's a good man. He does some great things for this industry. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, if it was if it was up to me, boy, I'd buy everything from him. But I just, you can't grow strawberries in the winter in Ohio. So
Right. Right. Well, it's, food's important, and it's an important part of our culture. And, even I tell this story sometimes. I went to give a burger to a homeless guy out back of the restaurant I was managing in Santa Monica. And he told me, he goes, no, I'm watching my red meat intake. And so
wow.
I got him a fried chicken sandwich after that. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, that is awesome. Right. So, when you said the vegetarian movement hasn't hit, hasn't hit New Mexico, it's definitely hit California on almost every level. Right. Or at least, red meat, portion of it. So,
yeah. And that, I mean, isn't that always how it is? It starts at the coasts and then kind of moves inward.
mm-hmm. Right. And I was vegetarian for a long time, 10 years. And then I'm 90% plant-based now. I'll eat some meat on Sundays, or if there's something, left over that the kids haven't eaten or something. My wife made some fish the other night and I had some. And so, but very small portion. I'm learning more to moderate this than I ever had before, where it was like, growing up in the South, I was very meat heavy diet. And last week I interviewed actually a restaurateur. She has a Nashville style hot chicken joint in Mexico City, of all places.
Wow.
And Gina Hendricks. And I remembered my high school eating habits, where I would go through the hamburger French fry line every day, except when they had pizza in the other line. And so for 4 years I don't even want to count how many of those, whatever soy-based burgers, whatever was in those burgers, right? So now here I am, like really watching what I eat and interviewing, and you guys like you, and also Farmer Lee Jones and his produce, about his stuff and sustainable farming and those things. And so it's been amazing. Do you, we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. Do you have anything else you want to add that we may have missed along the way, or?
No, I've probably gone down more rabbit holes than I anticipated. But no, I think, I'm excited to get this up and going. I'm happy for you and what you're doing. I know, kind of that first podcast with you and I is kind of what started you on this journey, and I'm excited to see everything that you've done with it. Man, you've come a long way, and so it's fun to be a part of that. Fun to hear, all the different people that you have on the show. You've got some really interesting topics, and I think it's really applicable to where we're at nowadays, because we all have to continue to support and encourage each other. That's the nice thing about these podcasts, is really seeing other options and other things that are out there. And it's been nice to see your journey. So yeah, and who knows if I'll ever go back to doing the podcast, the Business Chef podcast. But I really enjoyed my time with that. The biggest difference for me was that I got to do a lot of that work on the podcast when I was living in hotel rooms. And now that I'm not living in hotel rooms, it's just not quite as fun when you're
right.
So
right. I think that, well, I will say this. When I was a guest on your show, that was the very first time I had done anything like that. And I was sitting in my office at work, and I was being interviewed, and I don't know where you were, but I was actually like, oh, I don't want anybody to hear me doing this. And so it was kind of like, but then I know one time you were driving in a car. When I interviewed you, you were in a hotel room, just flown in on a Sunday night, because I was off from the restaurant in Santa Monica, and you were in a hotel room, and we spoke for probably 2.5 hours, but we only got an hour and 20 minutes. It's actually on of the podcast portion, those type of things. And so, guys, I wish there was we could have these, of the podcast. I'm sure you've had it with multiple guests, where what was happening before and after the podcast was probably even better than what was on the show sometimes, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Definitely more raw.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's why I love this live format. And it was funny because I just basically, you had put out a post on LinkedIn, and I had 3,000 connections at the time. It's like, who would like to be on my podcast? And I DM'd you, and I was like, I'd love to do it. And cause I've been thinking about it, and I think at some point before I even started my own podcast, I'd been on, I think about 15 different podcasts as a guest.
Wow.
And then, I decided, I'm like, well, why don't I start my own? Right. And then that's where the Restaurant General Manager podcast came from. And there was 10 episodes out before I started taking the live audio and putting those up there. So I'll take this and I'll put this up there on the podcast. And then I didn't even plan on doing a live show. Never even crossed my mind. And I was on Steve Weber, who worked for Bubba Gump Shrimp Company for 15 years as Forrest Gump, right? He looks like Tom Hanks. I asked him to be on he was episode number 2 on the Restaurant General Manager podcast, because he used stories from the movie on how to do organizational change in businesses. And so I brought him on and we talked and we did that. And so I asked him to he has a live show called American Gumption. I said, well, I want to talk about modern longevitarian. So can I come on? And he said, yeah. And we talked about it. We did it. We got done. He's like, you should do a live show. I'm like, now I got a podcast. I got 2 podcasts. I got all these other things. And so he like, at least apply for LinkedIn. And I did. And it's like you have to apply and get approved to do LinkedIn Live, which we are live on LinkedIn now. And that's when I got approved for that. I was like, oh, now I gotta do a live show, right? And so this is my 4th week, and I do them Monday through Friday, and I haven't missed a day. And I've had some amazing people on, now you and Damon's going to be on in a couple weeks, and then I've had some people who've been on my shows before and people who've never been on any of my shows. And like the gentleman that wrote Turn the Ship Around, one of the top 10 business books of all time, Captain David Marquet, was on last Monday, and that was an honor to have him on the show. So it's been super cool, and it started with the Business Chef podcast, so you can put that feather in your cap and say, yes, that's where I started. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if I got nothing else from that podcast that got you started, so that's great.
Well, no, there's so many things, right? I mean, there's just so much to learn in your podcast. You were over 100 episodes, right?
Yeah, we were 135, I think, something like that. Yeah, we did quite a few. Did them every week for almost 3 years, and yeah. And it was good. And eventually I think I'd like to go back to it. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. I think I got more out of it than anyone else. But at the end of the day, you just only have so much bandwidth, and there's only so much I could do. And unfortunately, that was something that just had to give. And I had to, kind of move away from, just because this has become all encompassing for me. And, but it won't be that way forever. And, I think once we can kind of get things up and going and kind of get our feet underneath us, then we'll see what's next. And that it may be that, or it may be something different. But I've found that you just have to kind of jump into the deep end of the pool on whatever you're doing, and things work out, and you figure it out. And people are much more. People are easier on us than we think they are. We're harder on ourselves than anything.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, exactly. I never expected that it would be people would want to, listen to Scott Stanfield interview people, right? And what I found out, because the Restaurant General Manager podcast lay dormant for a while when I started the Modern Longevitarian podcast, and it's hard to get people on, during the first parts of the pandemic, like how are you going to interview people and stuff. But then when I posted audio from the live show onto that, there were just people who were subscribed and they were just started listening to it. Like they didn't even skip a beat. Right. And I even get listens, I was getting listens, average of 100, downloads without doing any marketing or any of those type of things. That's not a lot, but that's still 100 people listening to your podcast, a week for all those different ones. And so you're impacting people's lives. And I know that you said this and I say the same thing. I get more out of this than I think the listeners do, because a little piece of every single person I interview stays with me. Like your formula for success, right? Standards plus accountability times consistency equals success. And I broke in the podcast. I actually said, well, let's start with success. Let's do a little algebra here and define success. That stuck with me. And you and I rapped about that back and forth. We volleyed the ball back and across the net about what success is and what we've learned over the years and having experience, because success may not be food costs, right? Or labor cost. It may be something, it may be like you said, like you're putting employees first and having balance. your definition of success in this restaurant is going to be completely different than somebody else that maybe like an investment company comes in and looks to do things. So
Right.
That piece has stuck with me ever since we did that interview in December, right? That's almost a year's time. So absolutely amazing.
It is. Yeah. And that's the great thing about this is that, as you get uncomfortable and you put yourself in these positions where, you have to step out of your comfort zone, it keeps you on your toes. And, as comfortable as I am opening restaurants, I don't necessarily love it. But it's something I know. And so it's something that I gravitate towards, even though I don't always want to do it per se, but it is something that I know, and it's something that I love. And so, with this, again, it's different when it's your own money, but at the same time, I'm comfortable enough and I'm confident enough in my abilities that I was willing to put it all on the line. And, it remains to be seen how it's going to work out, but I feel good. I feel like regardless of what the outcome is, I've learned what I needed to learn, and we've done what we needed to do.
Awesome. Well, Shawn, I wish you all the luck in the world, and I look forward to coming down and we can, like I said, have our own version of Triple D and eat some New Mexican style burritos and do that. So, and I know we actually just had a couple people wish you some luck on the comments. I put them up on the screen as we were talking. So,
Awesome.
there's even some of the, you've got fans out there that are wishing you luck, and we're pulling for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is not, I hate the term self-made because no one is self-made. And this has really been such a huge community effort from family and friends and just so many people that have done so much in so many different ways. I just am so incredibly grateful for everybody and their help, because we wouldn't be where we are today without other people.
Right. I mean, there's people that had to believe in you and me in the very beginning of our careers. When I was a dishwasher and you're spilling, turkey broth up your front side and your back side, right? Come back tomorrow after you really screw it up, right? And so, we got all those people to thank. I still stay in touch with the first owner I ever worked for 27 years ago, right? And he just sent me a message the other day on Facebook, and I'm gonna try to get him on the show. He's just reopened. He had to close because of a hurricane on Hilton Head Island, and now they reopened during the pandemic as well. And so it's people believed in us along the way that have taught us all these little tips and tricks and things like that to get us to where we are. And I know you have just as many people to thank and as I do, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a community effort for sure.
Absolutely. Well, we'll wrap it up here. We're over an hour. And so I know it looks like you got some construction to do.
I do. I got to go get some things done.
Yep. And you have one of the best voices for the most common voices that I've, made for radio. Now we're on video, but I couldn't think of a better voice, soothing voice to have on such a day, our election day. Right. So,
oh boy.
We don't even want to get into that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's end this on a high note.
Yeah. Thanks again. Right. I look forward to seeing what you come up with, what you do, and how fast this grows, and to your success, sir.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And
it's my
thanks
pleasure.
for everybody for listening. And it's been a journey, but thanks for having me today.
It's my pleasure. You take care. All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Shawn Bucher. Wow. What an interview. He has so much knowledge, and we didn't even mention his book. Now you go look at Food People Management. You can buy it on Amazon. Has his success formula in it, and I highly suggest you go pick that up. And if you're just starting out and leading people, and you want to learn how he has boiled down and distilled this knowledge down into one book that is also a compilation of what also was from his podcast and his one of his episodes, which is also the highlights of the first 100 episodes, is absolutely amazing. If you want to pick that up, and it's amazing stuff, and it's award-winning podcast, The Business Chef, and it's still out there in the world for people to go learn from. And so, also you can go check out, you can like this page or like this live broadcast as it's replayed. If you're listening to this, you can comment, you can share it with your friends, and I encourage you to do that. And you can find me on strongforlonger.com, and my name is Scott Stanfield. I am a modern longevitarian, and if it is your Friday, I hope you have a great weekend. Cheers.